From one standpoint, any distinction between absolute and relative surplus value appears illusory. Relative surplus value is absolute, since it compels the absolute prolongation of the working day beyond the labour time necessary to the existence of the labourer himself. Absolute surplus value is relative, since it makes necessary such a development of the productiveness of labour as will allow of the necessary labour time being confined to a portion of the working day. But if we keep in mind the behaviour of surplus value, this appearance of identity vanishes. As we saw in part 3 of Capital, the first early method of producing surplus value was absolute surplus value. Marx, in his later writings, classes this method as formal subsumption. In this method, due to the worker's ability to control the flow and intensity of the labour process with the use of tools and their own skills, capital could only obtain surplus value by lengthening of the working day. Under formal subsumption, we can see, at least theoretically, a clear distinction between that period of the day when labourers are producing necessary labour and that period of the day when they are producing surplus labour for the capitalist. In part 4, we saw how capital grew out of formal subsumption to take command over the labouring process by revolutionising it and restructuring it to capital's needs. Marx later refers to this method as real subsumption. Under this method, relative surplus value is produced by increasing labour's productivity and intensity, devaluing their labour power via the cheapening of commodities needed for their own reproduction, thus increasing the amount of time they are producing surplus value for the capitalists. The concept of a productive worker therefore implies not merely a relation between the activity of work and its useful effect, between the worker and the product of his work, but also a specifically social relation of production, a relation with a historical origin, which stamps the worker as capital's direct means of valorization. Marx now briefly discusses what it means for labour to be productive. In chapter 7, we saw how labour, in its interaction with nature, was productive in the creation of use values. In this abstract sense, it was originally individualistic. A labourer saw themselves as productive purely by producing directly for their individual need or goal. Whatever labour they performed towards their own desire was clearly productive for them. Over time, however, via the cooperation of labour, most labour processes became a social function. That is, as people worked together towards the production of specific use values or a shared goal, they formed as a collective labour force. Under this relationship, only those that are labouring towards that specific goal or use value are seen as productive. This isn't to say that other labourers were lazy or unproductive in the sense that we usually mean in today's world, but simply that they weren't productive in their context towards a specific production process. Under a capitalist mode of production, and from the point of view of the capitalists themselves in their goal for the creation of surplus value, only those labourers who are producing surplus value directly are seen as productive labourers. First, they must produce value, and then they must also produce surplus value before they are seen as productive in their labouring. However, because capitalism appropriated both the cooperation and the division of labour, the labour force under a capitalist mode of production is still a collective. As we discussed in part 4, some people perform some jobs and other people perform others, yet they are performing those jobs as a shared goal towards the capitalist desire or the production of surplus value. This also leads to two distinctions in those jobs, where some people perform labour directly towards production, actually producing a commodity, and some people who instead perform services, roles that support those who are actually producing. In today's world, we can think about somebody who is manufacturing in a factory, compared with someone who serves hot drinks in a coffee shop. While Marx doesn't go into too much detail here, it is something he returns to frequently in some way or another throughout all 3 volumes. But from this we can see that what is or isn't productive under capitalism is both highly contextual and historical, and must always be considered in its relationship towards production as a whole. If we may take an example from outside the sphere of production of material objects, a schoolmaster is a productive labourer when, in addition to belabouring the heads of his scholars, he works like a horse to enrich the school proprietor. That the latter has laid out his capital in a teaching factory instead of a sausage factory does not alter the relation.